you can discuss this on various levels. First of all, what's the Select Committee itself about in the first instance? It's about looking at modern structures for financing infrastructure and projects, be they in the private sector or public sector, or actually private-public sectors combined. And our structure, our approach, our way of thinking is outdated now. If you look around other regions, other local authorities, other jurisdictions, they've moved ahead of us. So the intention of the Select Committee is to go out, research what's available, bring it back and produce a reference document for Tynwald and the departments of government to look at, so that it has, as it were, a resource. And it's not intended, as has been perhaps thought, that it was a criticism of government. It's simply a way of moving thinking forward.
So are we talking about things like, we've heard zero budgeting mentioned about infrastructure projects before? Is this a fundamental change in the way things are funded?
Yes, it is. Yes, well, the intention
Well, it could be.
It could be. The intention is that we look at these things. I think you're probably aware of the fact that I did raise in my speech the point that Manx Radio, quite understandably, thought that because I was looking at a select committee that would look at financing infrastructure items, that somehow I was criticising the infrastructure. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's just simply that we lack this resource. And I also said in my speech that this select committee was going to be atypical, in the sense that it wasn't going to simply research something that existed in form of policy in a department and then bring forward a criticism and a list of recommendations. It's not that sort of select committee. The intention is it gathers information and intelligence about what is going on, and then hopefully members right across Tynwald, departments in all their various guises and concerns, will reach over to this document and say, actually there's something in there for us. It's a completely different way of thinking, and we really do need to move on. It's if you look at the way we think at the moment, if we simply rely on policies coming out of departments and then simply criticise those decisions later, then the whole concept of how we construct policy becomes linear or singular, and actually we need a much richer resource when we're structuring our policies, so that the opportunities to look in different directions is much broader.
Well, something must have sowed the seed with you here. Was it the fact that works on Douglas Promenade are, hopefully going to start in September? Was it previous administrations and their work on big infrastructure projects like the SLOC?
No.
Was it?
No, there you go. You determined that I'm going to criticise.
Well, something must have sown the seed.
Well, yes.
What got you thinking about this?
What's sown the seed is the fact that we're old-fashioned in the way we think. We, as it were, always rely on what we know and what we've done in the past, instead of looking out to see new ways of thinking. And financing now, the way finance works for governments and big organisations is completely removed from what it was even 10 or 15 years ago. I must say, after I was amused by something I read in Isle of Man today, just before effectively the debate in Tynwald. I'd put the motion down some weeks back, and then I noticed an article by Jim Mellon, who was being asked about what was going to happen in terms of financing over the coming year. And one of the areas he said that attention was required was from governments to look at financing options. He said, because actually it's potty not to. So that correlated exactly with what we're trying to do.
Well, in some areas of government it'd be potty not to, I suppose, but some parts of government you can't run like a business, can you?
Who says we're trying to run it by like a business? This is about how government engages in investment in all its sorts. It's not about being private sector. It's about government thinking differently, and the way to do it is to not think departmentally. And this research document, when it comes forward, and we will go out and look for all the best ideas.
Well, I was going to ask, where will you be looking? Where's the pinnacle of good infrastructure in your mind?
Well, there's a variety of local authorities in the UK that have shot way ahead of us in terms of how they're structuring their schemes with the private sector, by the private sector in cooperation, or themselves. and we're stuck in yesterday's formulation.